Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for having me here in such a special moment, and because today is a very special day and date for this organization. Happy Rosh Hashanah. I hope I say it good. And I want to say thank you for the people who's co-chairing with me here, Gabi, Yoav, and Mark is not here yet, but. Mounir, sorry. Mark is here, sorry. Mounir is not here, but sorry, because I had his name the first, sorry. So, I think this is a very important initiative. I want to say thank you to the organizations, speakers, academics, and guests. I think that shows a lot of you to come to contribute to peace and to these initiatives that are very important, not only for us, but for those who suffer in each side, and I think this is very important. You know that my group and have been fighting a lot, and we think that we need to be in the side of international law and international humanitarian law. The conflict in Palestine did not begin on the 7th of October, but certainly we hugely condemned what happened the 7th of October. We are with the families and with the suffering of the Israeli families that have hostages still with Hamas, and we ask, for the liberations of the hostages with no conditions. I had the pleasure to bring some of these families to Spain, to the Congress of the Deputies, because I was the spokesperson of the Socialist Party in the Commissions of Foreign Affairs before I came here a few months back. So it is important also to hear what their experiences are. Israeli society is a very diverse society. We need to eliminate the stereotypes. There are a lot of people that are pro-Zionist, anti-Zionist, but they are pro to a state solution. I mean, the huge variety within Israeli society is very big. We need to consider this. There is no a monolithic Israeli society. There is no a monolithic Palestinian society. We need to take into account this variety, and I think it's very important for us in order to understand what is happening in the Middle East. But in spite of what happened, and with all the condemn and the heart and the support for the Israeli families, we cannot forget that 50,000 people have died. They have been killed. Sorry, not died. Been killed in Gaza, which is awful. We need to condemn this. We need to stop this unjust war on civilians. I'm repeating this fact many times, but the other day in the United Nations, PM, the girl said we have more than 15 kids, with no limbs, and that they will need prosthetics. So we have already a lot of mutilated kids with not parents or family to consolate them, which feeds also a lot of violence and terrorist groups, a lot of frustration, and the lack of capacity to find any kind of future or work or whatever we can call by future, in Palestine. So we need to support the Palestinians for the solution. Certainly, in my state, I am a Spanish MP. We have supported the Palestine. We have recognized the Palestinian state. We think this is just unfair thing to do, because we have recognized always Israel since '48, but we have many resolutions on the recognition of Palestine, and we have never done this. This conflict ends simply as withdrawing Israel of the occupying territories, because they are a country occupying another land. So when you stop occupation, I can assure you, no more problems that will be there. So we need to address the situation, eliminate double standards. This is an obligation we have as an MPs, and we need to bring this kind of debates to the parliament, because we have double standards sometimes with other nationalities, and sometimes, sadly, we get used to numbers, no? First day of the incursion in Lebanon, there was 500 people, like 500, 2,000, 50,000. It's like we don't give a shit anymore about these issues. It's really worrying. It is really worrying, talking about people only with numbers. So I think we need to address this and come back on humanity, not only international humanitarian law, but what humanity means. And what I always say, I have two kids, one 13, one 10. And if they were our kids, it can be, you never know what can happen. We are going to a very, dangerous trend with this issue of not really caring of what is happening with others. And this is what is really worrying. So we have condemned the criminalization of UNRWA we have to comment that there was some report saying that some specific people were related to what happened 7th of October. Of course, these people need to be put out, and they were already, but we cannot criminalize a whole agency. And another thing, if we ask for respect to the world, we need to give legitimacy also to the international institutions. If you said you are persona non grata to Guterres, that means that you don't respect UN and that you don't respect the international systems we gave to ourselves after 45. The Second World War, this is where we are now, in a very, really dangerous situation. So we need to support international organizations in the terrain, the work of many organizations like yours that are working very nicely on the terrain, this initiative, which is very a nice idea. And also we are fighting a lot against misinformation, you know, because these issues of anti-Semitism, I was saying it the other day, Arabs and Jews are Semites, both of them. So if you condemn what Netanyahu is doing, and you are anti-Semite, no, porque if it were like this, you are the ones who are killing 50,000 Semites in Gaza. So who is the anti-Semite here? I mean, there's a huge confusion with the terms, and this is important to know. In this case, you know, cities like Jerusalem, which I think we should work with, based on that fact, no, is the city of the three religions. You know, Muslim, Christian, and Jews are brothers. They have the same books, more or less. You know, you read the stories are almost the same. They share the same land, the same customs, same food. I mean, you go to a kosher, I don't know if you have eaten kosher or halal, but I mean, yeah, I was with a friend in a kosher restaurant the other day. I said, come on, you're also taking, you know, the hummus coming, you know, so because we share it. This is our joint land, you know, so this are the things we need to work. But we need to denounce injustice. Not because you denounce injustice means that you are with the other side. No, you can be with both sides. Hello. It's like, no, because you support Palestinian to a state, you are anti. No, I don't accept this. I cannot accept this because this is not true. And we shouldn't, and any of them. See, only 1 second. And I mean, we cannot let this be instrumentalized by extreme right groups. Not from one side and not from the other. Not from radical Islamists, not from radical groups that we have in the Israeli government also. So I think this is very, very important. There is a huge rising of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia now that also I think we need to address. We need to fight for peace. This is the solution. We need to build bridges. New generation has a lot of responsibility on that because you are the future, guys. And we need to remove from our hearts frustration and pain and go for a better world. I've been living the world in my infancy, and I've lived difficult circumstances, I guess many of you. I have colleagues here that come from very, you know, complicated cities and have also difficult infancies or adolescence, but we have to gather to fight for a better world. It's the only good thing we can leave for the future generations, but for that, we need to believe in that. It's not theory, it's to do practical issues and be generous and try to see the bigger picture. We have now 2 open wars in the Middle East, in Gaza and in Lebanon. And I'm assuring you, thousands of families seeking for shelter with this agony of not finding any way out of the country. They don't have house now. They don't know how to stay. They are putting them in schools. Imagine yourself in this situation. It's super tough. Don't forget who you are, but don't forget who you will be if you were in the place of others. This is the only message I want to convey to you. I'm half Lebanese, as you can understand. I feel very touched for this, but me and my group, we will fight, you know, a lot for peace, for the recognitions of both states, not only one, but both, and for, inshallah, the next peace between Israel and Palestine. I want to congratulate you again, all of you, for this initiative. You will count with our support, and we also propose to host you for any other events, the parliament, the group, or any other thing you need. And I'm really sorry, I have to leave, but I took a plane 4 hours later only to be here with you guys. So thank you very much.
Merci Hana, JALLOUL, qui est donc du groupe social-démocrate. Merci beaucoup. I will speak in English as well, maybe. Non, je ferai en français. Ouais, je ferai en français. Non, tout d'abord, et avant que je ne laisse la parole à nos deux, à Gabi et Yoav, du tout nouveau réseau, d'abord exprimer évidemment mon émotion par rapport à cet événement, parce que cet événement a lieu aujourd'hui en solidarité avec la Palestine, a lieu après presque un an de génocide à Gaza, après des décennies d'occupation et de colonisation illégale. Et c'est extrêmement important, je pense. Bon, j'ai découvert, j'avoue, la signification de Rosh Hashanah et j'ai hâte de voir aussi la célébration concrète. Mais aujourd'hui, quand on est au Parlement européen, nous ne pouvons pas fermer les yeux à la complicité européenne avec ce qui est en train de se passer. Ce 2 poids 2 mesures qui aujourd'hui, en fait, est un soutien aveugle à la politique israélienne en faisant abstraction totale de toute règle du droit international, de tout principe de droits humains ou de même de la vie humaine tout simplement. Ces 2 poids 2 mesures sont clairs dans la communication de la Commission, mais aussi dans les actes de l'Union européenne et des pays membres qui n'ont pris aucune mesure, aucune sanction pour faire cesser, que ce soit le génocide à Gaza, que ce soit les attaques que nous voyons tous les jours en Cisjordanie, en Jérusalem-Est, ou même la violation claire de la souveraineté du Liban à laquelle nous avons assisté ces derniers jours. Et je pense que ça met une responsabilité importante au niveau européen, d'abord chez les partis évidemment et les dirigeants au pouvoir, mais aussi chez nous, ceux qui se mobilisent pour la justice, pour une paix juste et pour une fin, et je suis entièrement d'accord avec Hana JALLOUL là-dessus, pour une fin de l'occupation, parce que parler de paix sans parler de la fin de l'occupation, évidemment, est un non-sens. Il nous faut tacler, évidemment, dans l'immédiat, la violence quotidienne que nous voyons. Il nous faut imposer un cessez-le-feu. Il nous faut sanctionner, il faut arrêter les exportations d'armes qui nous rendent directement complices avec ce qui se passe. Et merci. Mais il faut aussi tacler les causes profondes de la violence, les causes profondes que nous voyons depuis des décennies et toutes les violations du droit international. Et ça, c'est une responsabilité que l'Europe devrait prendre en main si elle croyait une seule seconde à sa rhétorique de droits humains, de droit international et autres. Une seule seconde. Parce qu'aucun autre pays ne pourrait se permettre ce qu'est en train de faire Israël aujourd'hui, sans recevoir des sanctions, sans recevoir une réaction forte. Et c'est dans ce cadre-là que je trouve que célébrer aujourd'hui avec le nouveau réseau et que Gabi et Yoav vont vous présenter Rosh Hashanah, et je m'excuse aussi pour la prononciation, était extrêmement importante parce qu'on m'a raconté que c'est un moment de réflexion, de renouveau, d'espoir, et un moment où on peut se tourner vers l'avenir de justice, de paix. Et je pense que c'est dans cet esprit que nous nous réunissons aujourd'hui. Et c'est avec cette émotion-là que je veux donner la parole à, je ne sais pas, Gabi d'abord, pour présenter, pour faire les introductions et pour présenter le nouveau réseau qui naît aujourd'hui formellement, je pense. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Hello. Okay,
Thank you so much, Mark, for your powerful words and support for us with this network, and as well to Hana, although unfortunately she couldn't stay. Hello, everyone. Shana Tova. And Shana Tova. Welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here today as we begin a new year on the Jewish calendar and mark the launch of our new network, European Jews for Palestine. My name is Gabi. I'm a co-coordinator of this network, and I have to say, I never imagined that I would be sitting in a place like this, one of the world's great halls of power. And speaking as a Jew, I can only say that I'm a little uncomfortable. After all, the relationship between the great powers of Europe and Jewish people has always been a bit complicated. And indeed, many of us in this network do come from complicated backgrounds. As Hana said, we are not a monolith. We are Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Mizrahi. We are practicing, we are non-observant. We are speakers of many languages. Some of us are born and raised in Europe. Others are immigrants. Some of us are descendants of refugees who escaped genocide by the skin of their teeth only 80 years ago, and who are, like myself, able to work and live in Europe after generations, only thanks to the right of return laws upheld in various European countries, a right that our Palestinian siblings have yet to see fulfilled. Still, others of us have no European ancestry at all, but have built a home here nonetheless. And yet, across our diversity, we are united in our values. As we might have mentioned, today is Rosh Hashanah. As we begin a new year on the Jewish calendar, we stand with our Jewish siblings from across the globe who have been steadfast for the past 12 months in their opposition to Zionism, imperialism, racism, and of course, the ongoing genocide in Palestine. As we speak, the rogue Israeli government is continuing its year-long campaign of destruction and murder in Gaza, the West Bank, and now Lebanon. And we all know the truth. This is a Holocaust. We are here as a network in solidarity with the overwhelming groundswell of human beings from across every nationality, profession, and religion across Europe, including all of you who have decided to join us here today, who are standing up to say, we cannot turn a blind eye. Europe must not accept, protect, or support yet another genocide. We know that the crimes of the Israeli state are being enabled and protected on a massive scale. Support for Israel is organized and powerful. Organized supporters of the Israeli state, Jewish or not, hide behind the veil of fighting anti-Semitism, cynically leveraging anti-racism to divide minorities and marginalized communities and pit them against each other, and to bully institutions, media outlets, and governments to submit to their agenda. It is important to state it clearly. The Israel lobby is not a Jewish lobby. It is a diverse interest group that spans across religious, national, and political boundaries, but uses Jewish safety as a smokescreen. We are tired of it, and we've heard this before. And we believe that it is way past time that we address this complicated dynamic. We hope that this event is just that type of new beginning. What we have planned for you this afternoon is a series of 2 panels composed of wonderful activists across our network, many representing the different groups in our network, as well as civil society representatives and workers. In a few moments, I'll hand the mic off to Yoav, and then we will move into the first and second panel, moderated first by me and then again by Yoav, and there will be a few closing comments at the end. I want to leave with one question for the audience, which is that it's traditional on Rosh Hashanah to eat a pomegranate, a fruit that is native to Palestine. For some, it is known as the fruit of 1,000 stories. Each seed of the pomegranate is said to represent a good deed or a mitzvah. So as we sit and listen to our speakers' interventions on the cusp of this new year, I want to ask you, in a time of genocide, what does it mean to do good?
Thank you, Gabi. Merci, Marc. Dear friends, we are gathered here today at the European Parliament in Brussels to launch European Jews for Palestine. On the first day of the new Jewish year, Aleph Tishrei, Tafshin Pei, we renew our commitment. We strengthen our engagement against the genocide, against ethnic cleansing, against the Zionist apartheid in Palestine. Since October 2023, Jews across Europe have participated in the global mass movement against Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza. Jewish participation in this movement has sent a strong message that a growing number of Jews reject Israel's crimes against the Palestinian people. Despite the brutality of the genocidal inflicted on Gaza, the majority of established Jewish organizations in Europe continue to uncritically support the state of Israel, rendering themselves complicit in its crimes. These European organizations, like Israel itself, claim to speak for all Jews, effectively implicating Jewish Europeans in Israel's crimes, while simultaneously ignoring and silencing the growing dissent within Jewish communities across Europe. That is why we launched today European Jews for Palestine. This new network, born today, consists of numerous Jewish groups and communities based in various European countries, representing diverse Jewish backgrounds and traditions. But European Jews for Palestine is not only a political voice, it is also a growing Jewish movement in Europe based on justice and equality for all. We reclaim our Jewish identity by distancing ourselves from the state of Israel and from all forms of supremacist and colonial politics. We reclaim Judaism from Zionism. Dear friends, our struggle is rooted in a broad anti-racist movement. It is interconnected with the fight against Islamophobia, with the fight against anti-Semitism, and all forms of racism, discrimination, and oppression. This requires the liberation of Judaism and Jewish culture, the liberation of Jewish identity from the colonial doctrine of Zionism, and a commitment to equal rights for all in Palestine, from the river to the sea. Shana Tova.
I think we would like to call Fenya, Elenore, Joy, and Avi up to the stage. Thank you. Oh. Okay, thank you, everyone. Here we have a table of folks who are representing a couple of our network, a couple of the groups who are part of our network. And this table is here to talk about Jewish solidarity with Palestine in its many dimensions and facets. We'll start with Fenya FISCHLER from Another Jewish Voice, Belgium.
All right, hello, yeah. During these high holy days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we reflect, as our ancestors have for thousands of years, on the past year, on where we've wronged others, where we could have shown up better, where our actions may not have aligned with our values or our words. We recommit to justice and liberation in the next year. This is a time for accountability, deep self-reflection and transformation. And today we're launching this new network of 20 Jewish organizations across Europe during this most meaningful time of the year in the spirit of accountability to ourselves and each other, a renewed commitment to liberation and equality for all. I'm the descendant of Jews from Eastern Europe, all of whom fled from poverty, anti-Semitism, and genocide. I stand here as a grandchild of survivors who passed on their transgenerational trauma that we still feel today. I'm here as part of Another Jewish Voice and the Anti-Zionist Jewish Alliance in Belgium, in solidarity with Palestinians who are today experiencing a genocide in our name and have been experiencing an ongoing Nakba for 76 years. We're proud to represent this network today as a group of Jews who are saying, never again for anyone. We will not stand by while land is stolen, entire families and generations are being erased, and Palestinians continue to experience unimaginable violence and trauma at the hands of a state founded on principles of Jewish supremacy. We're here today because we know that Jewish lives are never more valuable than Palestinian ones. Within the Jewish world, there have always existed many perspectives on how we respond to anti-Semitism. I'm inspired by ancestors who organized with the Jewish Labor Bund, who believed in the principle of Doigkeit or Henus. They believed in building communities of solidarity in places where they worked and lived, not in somewhere far away and in the future. We're inspired by their ideas of home beyond the nation state, of finding common ground and bonds of mutual care with other communities where we live, to fight for justice wherever we are, for ourselves and for all those around us, because we intimately understand that justice and freedom for us is contingent on justice and freedom for all. And with this new network, we want to show that the spirit of our ancestors to bring our diaspora's visions to life is still alive and well. Standing here today as Jews in Europe, we know that our safety is a mere illusion if it relies on walls and weapons to keep those we dehumanize out. Instead, this Rosh Hashanah, we commit to a world based on justice, shared humanity, and a world beyond Zionism. A year where we put into practice the understanding that true safety lies in solidarity with all, including Palestinians. A year where we cultivate and nurture radical hope, where we organize and remain steadfast in our focus, knowing that Palestine one day will be free. These holidays let us recommit to the words of Marek Edelman, a surviving member of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. To be a Jew means always being with the oppressed and never with the oppressors. And to close, I want to read a few lines from Aurora Levins Morales. This time, we're tied at the ankles. We cannot cross until we carry each other. All of us refugees, all of us prophets. No more taking turns on history's wheel, trying to collect all debts no one can pay. The sea will not open that way. This time, that country is what we promise each other. Our rage pressed cheek to cheek until tears flood the space between, until there are no enemies left. Because this time, no one will be left to drown, and all of us must be chosen. This time, it's all of us or none.
Next, we will hear from Elenore MERZA-BRONSTEIN from the Anti-Zionist Jewish Alliance in Belgium.
Vous m'entendez? Super. Je m'appelle Elenore MERZA-BRONSTEIN et donc je prends aujourd'hui la parole au nom d'AJAB, l'Alliance juive antisioniste en Belgique, qui a un collectif composé d'activistes francophones et néerlandophones. Je tiens d'abord à souligner l'excellence belge. On a beau être un tout petit pays, mais parmi les organisations des 16 pays, il y a quand même 3 organisations belges, juste pour le record. Nous sommes 3 organisations juives en Belgique, dans ce nouveau network, mais ce n'est qu'un début. Ce n'est qu'un début parce que je crois que le moment que nous vivons aujourd'hui est un moment historique. Le temps de l'isolement est terminé. Le temps où nous étions considérés comme des voix marginales et pas représentatives est terminé. Nous sommes déterminés à peser dans le débat public, à venir vous bousculer. Nous sommes déterminés à faire entendre que nous refusons à Israël la centralité de nos existences. Nous refusons qu'Israël mène en notre nom un projet colonial de nettoyage ethnique depuis plus de 76 ans en Palestine. Nous reconnaissons enfin que la création d'un État-nation juif en Palestine historique a entraîné une injustice contre le peuple palestinien, injustice qui perdure aujourd'hui et dont Gaza est probablement un des épisodes historiques les plus violents. Quand le sionisme nous incombe à rentrer à la maison, et c'est peut-être aussi pour cela qu'il est soutenu par toutes les extrêmes droites populistes au pouvoir, notamment en Europe, celle-là même qui a exterminé nos ancêtres, nous pensons au contraire que nous pouvons faire communauté partout, au-delà des frontières nationales héritées des empires coloniaux. Notre judaïsme, celui que nous proposons, construit des ponts plutôt que des murs, car comme le rappelait Angela Davis, les murs renversés deviennent des ponts. Et c'est justement parce que nous sommes juifs, fiers de notre histoire, que nous nous tenons sans équivoque aux côtés du peuple palestinien. Notre judaïsme nous invite à être solidaires des peuples opprimés partout dans le monde, mais aussi ici, là où nous habitons, là où nous militons, là où nous faisons communauté, et de nous rappeler que la justice et l'équité reposent aussi sur la reconnaissance et la lutte contre les systèmes de discrimination, contre le racisme structurel et le legs colonial de nos sociétés aussi. J'aurais aimé me tenir devant vous aujourd'hui pour simplement célébrer Rosh Hashanah, la nouvelle année juive 5785, et partager avec vous l'espoir d'une année bonne et douce, les Shana Tova Umetuka. Mais il ne s'agit pas que d'un souhait, il s'agit surtout d'un devoir d'introspection. Les 10 jours qui séparent Rosh Hashanah de Yom Kippour, on les appelle les Yamim Noraim, les jours redoutables. Ces jours nous intiment à réfléchir à nos actes, à notre mobilisation de tous les jours et à nous demander comment nous allons nous faire pardonner. Mais comment demander pardon lorsque l'indicible est mené en notre nom? Comment demander pardon quand le génocide à Gaza est permis et soutenu, y compris financièrement et moralement, par de nombreuses institutions juives? Nous devons faire notre part du travail, mais vous devez aussi faire votre part du travail. Je voudrais m'adresser ici, notamment aux députés qui nous ont invités. Merci à vous de nous avoir ouvert cet espace. Mais je voudrais aussi m'adresser aux citoyennes et aux citoyens parce qu'il n'y a pas de petite action. Ne laissez plus les soutiens d'Israël dans leur acceptation la plus large, allant de la gauche institutionnelle à l'extrême droite, le terrain de la lutte contre l'antisémitisme. Refaites-en un enjeu d'antiracisme politique. Ne les laissez pas non plus piétiner la mémoire de nos morts. Rejetez tout amalgame entre sionisme, antisionisme et antisémitisme. L'antisémitisme est un racisme, l'antisémitisme est un délit, l'antisionisme est une critique politique légitime d'un État colonial qui bafoue le droit international depuis 76 ans. Le sionisme est non seulement une injustice historique faite aux Palestiniens, mais le sionisme nous met toutes et tous en danger. Israël commet des crimes contre l'humanité, mène une guerre régionale qui entraîne toute la communauté internationale avec elle. Il nous met, nous aussi, juifs et juives, en danger puisqu'il prétend parler en notre nom. On entend souvent, je vais conclure, que personne ne peut arrêter Israël. Mais ce n'est pas vrai. Je ne vous ferai pas l'affront de vous rappeler le rôle des États-Unis. Et je vais rappeler que l'Europe, puisque nous sommes ici dans sa maison et que vous en êtes nos représentants, est le premier partenaire commercial d'Israël. Vous avez les moyens de mettre fin à l'accord de coopération avec Israël. De la même façon, vous avez les moyens de mettre fin à la livraison d'armes à Israël. Ce n'est d'ailleurs pas un pouvoir, c'est une obligation juridique pour tous les États européens qui ont ratifié le traité sur le commerce des armes. J'ai même du mal à croire qu'on doive le dire encore aujourd'hui. Il y a tout un tas d'actions qui permettraient aux États européens de traduire en actes leur indignation et leur soutien à la Cour internationale de justice. Je voudrais conclure en disant que jamais dans l'histoire, des privilégiés n'ont abandonné leurs privilèges sans avoir été contraints de le faire. Et le problème, je suis désolée de le rappeler, n'est pas seulement Netanyahou et ses gouvernements d'extrême droite. Israël est accusé de génocide plausible. Israël doit rendre des comptes, et si Israël doit rendre des comptes, alors nous aussi, et vous aussi, vous devrez rendre des comptes. Nous devrons expliquer comment nous avons pu laisser un criminel de guerre non seulement prendre la parole devant l'Assemblée des Nations Unies, mais être ovationné par une partie de son public. Nous devrons expliquer comment nous assistons au premier génocide transmis en direct. Presque un an, j'ai du mal à croire que nous en sommes encore à exiger la plus basique et finalement la moins contraignante des demandes, à savoir un cessez-le-feu immédiat et permanent. Aujourd'hui, c'est une promesse que nous devons vous faire, celle de notre détermination et de notre engagement. Nous savons que nous ne serons jamais libres tant que les Palestiniens et les Palestiniens ne le seront pas. Baruch ata Adonai, boneh haolam betzedek. Béni sois-tu, toi qui reconstruis le monde dans la justice.
Next, we will hear from Joy Kuma from Jews for Just Peace of 5784, Denmark.
Thank you, Gabi. I feel grateful to be here today, and I'm also anxious to be here. We are at the precipice of a great step in the right direction. Today on Rosh Hashanah, a holiday where we take stock of the past year and let the next year take shape, we take note of our shortcomings, the places where we missed the mark, so to speak, and we rededicate ourselves to be the kind of people we want to be, walking out of the metaphorical woods and back onto the path we want to take in life. Today, we take another step on the path to stand against the genocide of the Palestinian people, to speak on behalf of those who we are unable to hear from, the murdered journalists and countless families of Palestine whose voices have been violently and systematically silenced, and the children who never got the chance to find their own voices of protest. 80 years ago, the Jews of Europe were the victims of a genocide at the hands of the Nazis during World War II. Most of us today will have seen the camps, read the letters, and cried at the memorials. Ever since, being an anti-Semite has rightly become a mark of shame, something any good person would want to avoid. And this, the pain of our murdered ancestors, as well as the fear of repeating the atrocities of the 20th century, is now being wielded against us with the claim that any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. And generally, sadly, we're all falling for this heartless, ahistoric, and cowardly tactic, choosing to cede ground to a murderous regime rather than risk being accused of the bad thing. Jews all over the world have attempted to speak out against the crime happening in Palestine for a long time, and yet we're dismissed as self-hating Jews, even arrested for anti-Semitism. And still, we're embraced and thanked when we walk in the marches for peace in Gaza. People come up to us crying with joy because we're there, because we symbolize the truth. It will never be wrong to demand justice for everyone. I'm a Jew who loves Judaism. I love the wisdom and mercy of our traditions. I love our insistence on life, pikuach nefesh, that life always takes precedence over death, that life is for living to its fullest, that our tradition is a system designed specifically to guide us into becoming the kind of people who will know the value of making life good for one another. I love the command to love the stranger. There's a story I really like about a rabbi and a soap maker walking together. And the soap maker asks the rabbi, "What's the point of Judaism? After thousands of years of teachings about goodness, justice, truth, and peace, look at all the trouble and misery in the world. If Judaism is so wonderful and good, why is there still trouble and misery?" Here they come across a child covered in dirt, and the rabbi asks him the question back. "What's the point of your soap making when this child is still dirty?" The soap maker defends his profession, saying, "Well, no, you have to use the soap to clean before it works." And the rabbi exclaims, "Exactly. So it is with Judaism. You have to use it before it works." The story teaches us that not only is that Judaism is also a call to action. There's this concept I love of tikkun olam, or repairing the world, a piece of wisdom from the Kabbalist Isaac Luria, telling us that the world was not created perfect and in fact remains broken. The teaching explains to us that by performing mitzvot, or good deeds, we're doing the work of repairing our broken world, of righting its injustices and its faults. It can be read as a sort of reply to the soap maker's question, as if to say, yes, there is indeed trouble and misery in the world. And luckily, we can be the ones to change that. My activism for Palestine and my Jewishness cannot be separated. I fight for Palestine exactly because I am Jewish, because fighting oppression and genocide is exactly what Judaism should be used for. Thank you.
And finally, we'll hear from Avi MELKA from TSEDEK, Collectif Juif Decolonial from France.
Thank you, Gabi. L'anniversaire du monde, le jour du souvenir, le jour du jugement, le jour de la sonnerie. Il y a plusieurs appellations dans la tradition juive pour les jours de fête du Nouvel An que nous célébrons aujourd'hui à Bruxelles. Cette journée, nous la consacrons à la Palestine et à l'annonce de notre nouveau réseau juif européen anti-sioniste. Cette année, nous célébrons encore, avec plus de force, un nouvel an de résistance juive anti-sioniste et renouvelons nos vœux de solidarité et de fraternité envers le peuple palestinien. À cette date clé du calendrier juif, nous nous tenons aux côtés de nos frères et sœurs juifs et juives du monde entier, qui au cours des 11 derniers mois se sont continuellement opposés au sionisme, à l'impérialisme, au racisme d'État et au génocide en cours en Palestine. Ensemble, nous nous tenons aux côtés de nos sœurs et frères palestiniens victimes d'un génocide à Gaza et d'un nettoyage ethnique en Cisjordanie. Nous nous tenons aussi aux côtés de toutes les victimes que le sionisme n'a pas épargnées ces derniers temps, au Liban, mais aussi au Yémen et en Syrie. Nous invitons toutes nos communautés juives à se responsabiliser en prenant position pour la justice. Que ces jours de Nouvel An puissent être propices à l'introspection et à un réveil communautaire en faveur de la solidarité. Et que l'on puisse avoir le courage de nous placer toujours, et coûte que coûte, du côté de la justice et de la vie. La sonnerie du chauffard, en ce jour de Nouvel An, doit nous faire prendre conscience que les actes de l'humanité doivent être sans cesse examinés. Nous devons nous parfaire sans cesse, et même dans la résistance, avoir le courage de nos opinions et ne pas faillir. Le Nouvel An juif est une occasion de se projeter vers l'avenir, mais aussi de réfléchir au passé et de réexaminer la relation que l'on entretient avec le monde. Dans la tradition, le Nouvel An honore la date de la création d'Adam et Ève et le lien de l'homme avec le monde qui l'entoure. Le regard que l'on pose sur la Terre, l'humanité et tous les êtres vivants qui la composent doit être bienveillant et chaque action doit être en faveur d'une construction ou d'une reconstruction, de la justice et de la paix et surtout de la vie. Maïmonide disait que la sonnerie du chauffard sert à secouer le fidèle et à le sortir de sa torpeur spirituelle pour l'inviter au repentir. Aujourd'hui, la sonnerie du chauffard nous rappelle les cris et pleurs des pères et des mères en détresse face au massacre de leurs enfants. Selon la tradition, le monde est en jugement en ces jours et le livre contenant les actes de toute l'humanité est ouvert devant Dieu pour qu'il nous évalue et nous juge. Puisse-t-il se rappeler de ceux et celles qui souffrent et faire de cette année 5785 celle où la promesse du plus jamais devienne une réalité, celle de la victoire et de la liberté, celle de la vie et de la douceur de vivre. Que les fruits consommés par tradition en ces jours de fête puissent signifier un renouveau pour tous en Palestine, que les graines de la résistance de la grenade se propagent et que la douceur du miel et de la date symbolisent la paix future dans toute la région. Que les pains ronds pour honorer le cycle de la vie soient une promesse de vie et de renouveau pour tous les Palestiniens sur une terre libérée du sionisme de la mer au Jourdain. Aujourd'hui, pour la première fois, nous nous sommes rassemblés ici, au Parlement européen, pour annoncer la création d'un réseau juif antisioniste européen. Et dans la tradition juive, nous avons une prière réservée aux occasions rares ou à une nouveauté. Bien sûr, l'antisionisme est une longue histoire juive, mais pour notre part, c'est bien la première fois que nous sommes réunis ici, au Parlement, un jour de Rosh Hashanah, en l'honneur de la Palestine. La prière de Shecheanu est un remerciement à Dieu de nous avoir gardés en vie et amenés à ce moment important. Baruch ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shecheanu ve'ekimanu ve'egianu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Thank you all so much. We'll move quickly on to our next panel, since we are obviously a tiny bit short on time. So I welcome Yoav to the stage, as well as Sarah, Joanna, Julie, and Hamdan.
Okay, welcome to the second and last panel of this event for Rosh Hashanah with the title Rights Under Attack in Europe. Just a technical comment. Since we started later than planned, the simultaneous translation will now stop, and we will continue with our speakers, probably without simultaneous translation. So the first speaker in this panel on the rights under attack in Europe will be Sarah CHANDER from Equinox Initiative for Racial Justice. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you so much for everyone for being here. My name is Sarah CHANDER. I'm director of the Equinox Initiative for Racial Justice. This is a queer, racialized-led organization organizing towards societies of care and not control, envisaging a world where the billions spent across the world on surveillance, punishment, and colonial projects are instead redistributed towards social provision, protection, and care. So, first of all, just to say, it's quite emotional to be here at this, I think, historic gathering, and thank you very much for being a part of it. I think what we can draw a parallel is between both the co-option and the criminalization of racialized communities across the world, and specifically here in Europe, who have been demonized for their support of the Palestinian state movement and solidarity with it. We're seeing that in Europe, and we see that across the world. And so any movement that builds towards that and organizes toward that in its heart it's emotional to see that. And I thank you all for the work that you're doing. I wanted to share from the perspective of racialized movements focusing on anti-imperialism, decriminalization, and safety above all else. I just wanted to share three main reasons that we're really happy to see this collective, to see the establishment of European Jews for Palestine, and envisaging ways that we can work together. The first, as we've already heard consistently, the EU project is complicit in the genocidal Zionist colonial regime that is Israel. Not only does it extend unwavering political support for that project, co-opting us in that process, but it also expends massive resources to that effect. We know that Israeli arms companies have been benefiting from EU research funding across for many years now against the backdrop of this occupation, military, police, and settler violence. All the way back in 2015, we saw the European Coordination of Committees and Associations for Palestine's report, which identified that in the EU Horizon 2020 program, 205 projects involving Israeli companies or institutions had altogether received around 450 million in EU research funding, of which a good 32 million was for military companies and institutions. We see that 126 million European research funding, euros in research funding has been sent to Israel since 7th of October, and that was by the TINI Institute, the Transnational Institute. And generally throughout the program, the Horizon 2020 program has offered 1.28 billion to Israeli companies and universities. Last year, since the 7th of October, 300 academics joined State Watch, the organization State Watch, wrote to discuss the dual use, so the use of both generalist technologies in the context of military funding, as part of the broader project of support for the genocidal regime. And so we see across this, Zionism is profiting from genocide on the Palestinians. We know that military exports are a huge aspect of the total revenue that the Israeli state gathers and Israeli company gathers. And specifically, there's a connection here on how we are treated here as racialized communities, as communities that protest, as people that want to express solidarity with the Palestinian people. So Israeli drones have been deployed across Europe and also here in Belgium. If anyone was at the Saturday protest in Belgium, we saw drones. We, of course, aren't in a position to know which drones our governments are using, but we know that governments across Europe purchase weapons, drones, and surveillance technology from the Israeli state. We know that Israeli weapons, drones, surveillance technology are deployed by Frontex to surveil migrants, to prevent migrants, and to bolster the European border project. So we know that all of these connections are related. We know that these issues are related, and we know that Israeli funding is put into the violent policing of protest here on racialized communities, on Jewish people, and on any people are expressing solidarity with Palestine. My last point before we move on is that it's just super, super important and emotional to see solidarity across communities. As all of the panelists have said, we have seen a divide and conquer in European institutions between anti-racist movements, arguing that our liberation is actually separated. I would like to see those rejoined again, and I think the people in this room are. I'm looking forward to working with you all again against the distractions that institutions have put towards us and imagining a situation where we are all free and also Palestine is free. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next speaker is Joanna CAVACO on behalf of Erev Rav, Netherlands.
Thank you for the floor. Friends in solidarity, members of the press, esteemed peers and colleagues. I stand before you today representing Erev Rav, a Netherlands-based Jewish anti-Zionist collective, the only one so far. I begin by expressing my gratitude to Yoav Shemer and Gabi KAPLAN for organizing this solemn moment, which feels both historic and tragic. As we gather to witness the coming of a new year, the sweetness of honey tastes as sour as vinegar, while Jews worldwide witness the immense pain inflicted by Israel's regime of death and war. Soul loss is a term that I've grown to use comfortably in this past year. It's a phenomena experienced by a group, resulting in the erosion of the group's moral fortitude, shaking core values, exposing moral projections, and laying bare what lies beneath. We are haunted by atrocities committed in our name, leaving our ethos and identity exploited and vulnerable. Paradoxically, it wasn't just decades of Palestinian dehumanization, land theft, or illegal occupation that precipitated this crisis of soul loss. Rather, it's our struggle as Jewish people to collectively speak out against these crimes against humanity. And this issue has two facets. One, the immense difficulty of standing alone against interpersonal attacks stemming from inside and outside one's community. And two, the villainization and criminalization of our voices, perceived as aggressive, illegal, and immoral when we dare to criticize Israel's actions. I fear losing my job when I speak up. I don't want my rabbi to kick me out. I'm afraid my team will see me as an extremist. These are just a few sentiments expressed by members of our collective in these recent months. Just 2 weeks ago, a debate in the Dutch parliament erupted whether or not wearing a watermelon symbol could be construed as supporting Hamas. Jewish supposed safety is being weaponized in the political arena, including in the halls of this House, to suppress Palestinian solidarity, and I think we all recognize this truth. Consider the Jerusalem definition versus AHRA debate, a conversation centered around the terms that define what constitutes anti-Semitism, hate towards all Jews. Even now, we in the Netherlands are aware that the mayor of Amsterdam is hosting Jewish groups, all of them exclusively supporting Israel, to discuss these definitions. Are we invited? Absolutely not. So much about fostering free speech depends on who is in the room, who gets to say what, when, and how. Now, freedom of expression is integral to being Jewish, but also to being human, as I've recently learned in therapy that self-expression is actually essential for mental health. So what happens when speaking up and demonstrating solidarity becomes criminalized? It creates an even sicker society, one that shirks collective responsibility for respectability politics. We refuse seeing our Jewish identities being reduced to whether or not we support Israel and its policies. So what can we as civil society organizations do? Let me share what has worked for us. Spaces like this network remind me that actually we are not alone, that I am not alone, that Erev Rav as an organization is integrated into a constellation of others who can speak freely and strengthen each other through speech and action. This network will play a crucial role in the struggle for fundamental rights in Europe, for Jewish self-expression, and for unapologetic Jewish solidarity with Palestine. To reverse the repression of free speech and assembly regarding Palestinian advocacy, we must, first and foremost, challenge definitions of anti-Semitism that conflate criticism of Israel with hatred of Jews, demand inclusive dialogue and action involving diverse Jewish and Palestinian voices, build coalitions, educate the public between the distinction of legitimate criticism of states' policies of genocide and anti-Semitism, and support legal challenges to laws and policies that unduly restrict the freedom of expression, not just at a national level, but at a European one. The dynamics at play, the misuse of anti-Semitism accusations, security-focused policies, and media biases will have and are already having severe consequences. They create a chilling effect on our ability to speak up. They marginalize Palestinian voices, further make Jewish people in Europe unsafe as true anti-Semitism gallops rampantly, and the genocide being promoted as a valid state policy. So the goals of European Jews for Palestine resonate deeply with Erev Rav and its goals. Our network stands as a testament to the collective voice we are building, a voice that unapologetically challenges the uncritical support for Israel amongst established Jewish organizations. We're united in our commitment to combat the weaponization of anti-Semitism, a tactic that for too long has silenced legitimate criticism of Israel's actions. Much like Erev Rav, this network provides a crucial space for Jews to speak freely against atrocities committed in our name fostering the kind of inclusive dialogue that involves diverse Jewish voices. And make up no mistake that our struggle is part of a broader anti-racist, decolonial, anti-imperialist movement, and we are many. By standing together, we're not just reclaiming our voices, we're actively shaping a future where Jewish and Palestinian destinies are intertwined in the pursuit of justice, historical reparations, and equality. This network is and will be more than an organization. My only hope is that it becomes a movement towards the change that we desperately need. So, to conclude, collective action, networks like these, like ours, that we can stand for truth and uphold Jewish values of pursuing justice and standing with the oppressed, because no one is free until we are all free. Shana Tova, Free Palestine, and May 5,785, that's a long one, be a more just year than this last. Obrigada.
Thank you, Joanna. And the next speaker is Julie PASCOET from the European Network Against Racism, known as ERAR.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for inviting ERAR to speak at this historic moment indeed. So we are a network of anti-racist organizations, around 160 organizations across Europe. We represent a diversity of groups, Black, Muslims, Roma, Jewish people, Asian descent people, and many, many anti-racist activists across Europe. So I'm not sure my words will fully capture the honor and the emotion that I feel today, to be with you today, to mark this new year and also to launch this much-needed network of European Jews for Palestine. And it's truly inspiring to be there with so many bold activists. So our ERAR members who initiated these historic initiatives, TSEDEK, Decolonizer, Another Jewish Voice, who have shown incredible solidarity, support, care since they have joined ERAR. My colleagues present today, Norhin and Emmanuel, and I have also a special thought for my colleague Mahmoud Abu Rahma from Gaza. My longtime comrade in the struggle, Sarah CHANDER, we were thinking back to the day when we were longing so much for such an organization to exist. And so many of you here today with a special thought to Palestinian and Lebanese friends. So you are all a testament that another world is possible, especially in such a political context where we could definitely be very pessimistic, where a genocide is unfolding in front of our eyes, where the far right is gaining ground, including in this house, and becoming more mainstream, and where political forces are trying to pit us against one another. So we need to strengthen our voices to resist the blackmail in silence imposed by those who seek to suppress discussion about the roots of racism and its manifestation. Standing together will strengthen our respective anti-racist and decolonial position, and this is the case at ERAR, also thanks to our members. To be strong and supportive alliances, as it was mentioned, and to lead to important shifts in the fight against racism. I've been there already for 14 years at ERAR, and I really see this is a shift. And what better way to talk about rights restrictions than by starting with all the people I've mentioned, along with many others that have seen their freedom of speech, assembly, and expression threatened. Many of you are in the room today and you have specific experiences about that, especially when it comes to advocating for Palestinian liberation. People across Europe, especially racialized and marginalized communities, are being racially profiled and silenced when they speak out against the policies of the Zionist regime and stand in solidarity with Palestinians. And you have examples. There has been very good reports from the European Civic Forum, from Amnesty International, among others, that really lay out the situation clearly. movements that challenge the status quo are being labeled as extreme or even criminal, often mobilizing racist tropes of who is perceived as a danger in Europe. So, of course, this erosion of rights should not surprise us. This is not new, given Europe's long-standing failure to confront decolonial responsibilities and the current consequences of past massacres and persecution, including the ongoing colonialism in Palestine. It's also not surprising, given the increasing instrumentalization of anti-Semitism to justify the criminalization of expression of solidarity and legitimate criticism of the Israeli state. Muslims, Arab, or those perceived as such, and even Jews have become convenient scapegoats, and we need to challenge the false narrative that conflict criticism of Israeli policies with anti-Semitism, and are actually even contributing to the rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, more specifically. When civic space is shrinking, as I've just mentioned, activists and organizations are being intimidated and harassed. Our collective ability to advocate for justice, whether in Palestine or anywhere else, is under threat. So for us, the launch of the European Jews for Palestine is a powerful step to actually reclaim civic space and give a much-needed space to support Palestinian liberation. European Jews for Palestine will help challenge these rights violations, using their voice to defend the rights of Palestinians and to push back against the shrinking civic space I've just described. So with you, you can count on Hana. We will continue to defend justice and equity, advocating here in Brussels, mobilizing across Europe to challenge Europe on their declining rule of law that is actually fueled by a systemic racism that has never been really addressed. This is now time for radical and intersectional solidarity, as well as bold leadership with vocal members of the European Parliament. I'm happy that we still have some in the room. That's also why I think we need a strong anti-racism and diversity intergroup that can provide also a strong anti-racism front in the European Parliament that is full of far-right ideas. So only together we can stay united and we can create the space to imagine and propose a more just world. So you can count on Hana to stand up with you in this struggle for Palestine.
Thank you very much, Julie. And the last speaker in this panel is Hamdan AL-DAMIRI from the Palestinian community of Belgium. The floor is yours.
Merci. Bien voilà, d'abord je vous remercie pour l'invitation et prendre la parole donc, lors de cette séance, que je souhaite que ça se répète dans l'avenir et dans les mois et les prochaines années, parce que le combat pour le peuple palestinien, c'est un combat long, c'est un combat qui a démarré depuis des décennies, comme vous le savez. Donc c'est un combat aussi qui a besoin absolument de votre soutien, de votre participation, de votre solidarité et de votre implication surtout. Et vous, c'est clair, vous êtes impliqués aussi avec nous dans un combat juste. Chers amis, le combat du peuple palestinien, c'est un combat de libération nationale. Ce n'est pas un combat pour égalité ou autre chose. Non, c'est un combat pour la libération nationale. Notre peuple mène ce combat-là depuis des décennies et elle continue jusqu'à ce qu'elle récupère ses droits nationaux et impose par conséquent son droit à l'autodétermination et au droit des réfugiés palestiniens de retourner dans leur terre natale, dans leur village natal. Chers amis, moi je fais partie de 14 millions de Palestiniens dans le monde. Sur la terre historique de Palestine, il y a la moitié, juste la moitié. Même à l'extérieur, on est un petit peu plus que la moitié de peuple palestinien. Donc nous sommes à l'extérieur de la Palestine historique, 7 millions, quelques centaines de milliers de personnes. Nous sommes partout, partout dans le monde. Il y a ce qu'on appelle la diaspora palestinienne. Ici en Belgique, là où je vis personnellement depuis 40 ans de ma vie, nous sommes à peu près 70 000 personnes. Nous étions, il y a une vingtaine d'années, quelques mille seulement. Et justement, à cause de la situation sur place, la situation à Gaza, le blocus à Gaza, etc., il y a des milliers et des milliers de Palestiniens qui ont quitté là-bas, justement, parce que la vie devient insupportable. Et parmi ces Palestiniens, il y en a ceux qui se trouvent ici dans sur le territoire de l'État belge. Chers amis, nous sommes dans les pays européens presque 800 000 personnes, nous les Palestiniens, 800 000. La plus grande communauté palestinienne se trouve en Allemagne, donc juste à côté d'ici, presque 300 000 Palestiniens qui habitent en Allemagne. Certains ils sont là depuis les années 60, d'autres les années 70, d'autres après les massacres de Sabra et Shatila, surtout ceux qui sont venus du Liban, etc. Donc c'est un drame, mais aussi c'est un combat national. Dans le contexte actuel, vous le savez, ce qui se passe à Gaza. Vous participez dans les différents événements de solidarité et de soutien au peuple palestinien partout dans le monde, mais nous sommes désolés, nous les Palestiniens, de la position européenne. Je parle ici de la position politique officielle. Je ne parle pas des États-Unis, parce que les États-Unis se trouvent participatifs, malheureusement, à ce que fait Israël. Sur le plan militaire, sur le plan de le soutien financier, le soutien politique, le soutien diplomatique, etc. Mais l'Union européenne, malheureusement, elle n'a rien fait pour la Palestine, pour arrêter ce génocide qui se déroule comme si c'était un film américain long devant nos yeux. Chaque jour, on se réveille le matin, on entend tel massacre dans tel lieu à Gaza. Et ça continue depuis presque un an. Donc, l'Union européenne, malheureusement, sa position, elle est complètement derrière les Américains, même s'il y a quelques pays qui se distinguent, heureusement, par rapport à d'autres, mais en tant que telle, l'Union européenne, elle n'a rien fait, elle participe, elle est complice à ce qui se passe en Palestine, surtout dans la bande de Gaza et en Cisjordanie aussi. Chers amis, donc, je dirais le peuple palestinien, il a besoin, ici en Europe et ailleurs dans le monde, ce qu'on appelle la solidarité active. La solidarité active, c'est-à-dire d'essayer de prendre des mesures. Si on n'arrive pas à posséder des États européens, à prendre des mesures, mais nous-mêmes, ici et ailleurs, nous avons les cartes entre nos mains. Boycotter Israël, boycotter la colonisation, boycotter les entreprises israéliennes, les universités israéliennes, les artistes israéliens, les sportifs israéliens, etc. Ça aide, croyez-moi, à isoler de plus en plus Israël au niveau international. Je dirais que c'est à la portée de tout le monde de boycotter Israël. Parce que personne ne m'oblige d'aller acheter, je ne sais pas, tel produit ou tel produit, parce qu'il y a toujours l'alternative. Même les médicaments que parfois, nous tous, on achète dans les pharmacies des produits comment ça s'appelle, Teva. Hein? Voilà, donc Teva donc c'est un produit médical israélien. Alors pourquoi on achète ça? On n'est pas obligé de l'acheter. On peut acheter d'autres choses dans la pharmacie. C'est-à-dire, on a les cartes qu'on peut jouer, chacun de nous, à son niveau, justement pour aider à isoler Israël de plus en plus. Jusqu'à que, je dirais, le peuple palestinien récupère ses droits nationaux. Chers amis, le peuple palestinien, qu'est-ce qu'il réclame en fait? Le peuple palestinien réclame pour les réfugiés palestiniens de revenir, de retourner chez eux, et le peuple palestinien a le droit à l'exercice de son droit à l'autodétermination. C'est ça ce que réclame le peuple palestinien. Donc il a besoin de vous, de votre solidarité et de votre implication surtout. Isoler Israël, boycotter Israël, c'est une arme entre vos mains et vous pouvez le faire. Merci de nouveau à vous. Et peut-être la dernière chose à dire, le 19 octobre, ici à Bruxelles, le 19 octobre, nous organisons, donc l'initiative euro-palestinienne contre l'apartheid et la colonisation organise une grande journée contre l'apartheid. Et dans cette journée-là, il y a Ilan Papé qui participe, il y a des personnalités, il y a des parlementaires, il y a Jeremy Corbyn qui vient d'Angleterre qui participe à cette journée. Et nous avons contacté, et j'espère qu'il donne une réponse positive, Jean-Luc Mélenchon de France, etc. Il y a des parlementaires français, il y a des parlementaires belges, il y a des parlementaires de Norvège, etc. Chers amis, vous êtes appelés, je vous invite dès maintenant à participer à cette journée le 19 octobre à Bruxelles contre l'apartheid. Merci à vous.
Thank you very much. By the way, European Jews for Palestine will be also in that day. We conclude this panel, and we now will have a short video from a member of European Parliament, Mounir Satouri, from the Greens group, and also he's the chair of the European Parliament's subcommittee on human rights. So unfortunately he could not be here today. He's in France, but he sent a short video.
Bonjour, je suis Mounir Satouri et je regrette profondément de ne pas pouvoir être physiquement parmi vous ce soir. Je souhaite tout d'abord remercier Yoav et Marc pour l'organisation de cet événement. Je voulais aussi dire à toutes les participantes et les participants, aux représentants des associations présentes et au nouveau réseau des Juifs européens pour la Palestine, merci. Merci pour votre engagement, pour votre combat que je partage. Votre voix est précieuse dans la lutte pour les droits du peuple palestinien. Votre voix est précieuse face à la propagande de Benjamin Netanyahou et de sa coalition d'extrême droite. Vous me trouverez toujours à vos côtés dans ce combat pour l'égalité, pour l'autodétermination des Palestiniens et contre la colonisation, l'apartheid du gouvernement de Netanyahou.
So merci beaucoup à Mounir Satouri, who was not able to be here physically. And now we will celebrate Rosh Hashanah. You want to say a few words before? And just before we invite you then, after this short speech, to celebrate Rosh Hashanah with us, to stay with us for a moment of Jewish New Year celebration and share apple with honey and pomegranate and maybe some chanting if you're lucky. But first, Hana, please. Hana from Sweden.
Yes, thank you. Dear friends, my name is Hana GEDIN. I'm a Swedish MEP in this house from the Swedish Left Party. And please let me begin by expressing my sincere gratitude for the invitation and for allowing me to say a few words today. Let me also congratulate you on the formation of the European Youth for Palestine. What an important and impressive step this is. Celebrating and commemorating Jewish traditions and community is a great way of also remembering those before us who were refused to do so, some of them in my own immediate family. Friends, we have truly lived in the darkest of months since last fall, with the images of the genocide in Gaza having reached us daily. The complicity and silence of the global community has been deafening, and the so-called leaders of the world have turned their backs on Palestinian men, women, and children. We have all seen the images, heard the cries for help, felt the desperation of the situation unfolding. The starvation of Gaza is man-made. The bombed hospitals, schools, and refugee camps are the works of Israel occupation forces and their genocidal aspirations. But while we walk with heavy hearts, we do not walk alone in the fight for Palestine. Week after week, month after month, we march together for ceasefire, for an end to the occupation, for a just peace. And right there among us, in the demonstrations for Palestine, are our beloved Jewish sisters and brothers. The consistent presence of Jewish organizations for Palestine has not gone unnoticed, and I have never been as convinced as I am today that the solidarity is the way forward. We remember the bravery members of the Jewish community have shown when supporting an end to the occupation, sometimes suffering anti-Semitic hate and repulsion from parts of the far-right parts of the Jewish community. Yet, as you have so clearly demonstrated here today, There is a strong Jewish tradition of working for peace, solidarity, and reconciliation. That is very much alive still today. And on Sunday, tens of thousands of Europeans will take the streets to show their repulsion of the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the invasion of Lebanon. Because we stand together, and because we persist, we continue to stand strong. We will continue to walk this fight together with Jewish, Muslims, political and civil society organizations. We will continue to show those trying to divide us that we see no division amongst us. We see a genocide that needs to be stopped. We see Netanyahu on his road to destruction. And we see people after people in the region suffering under Israeli assault. So, dear friends, here today I see the best of unity, of our solidarity. United in the fight against anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate speech. United for Palestine during its darkest days. United in the longing of every people to live in peace. And united for children on both sides of the fragile borders, separating nations and their right to life. And not least, united in the struggle for vindication of all those that have fallen victims to the violence that stem from occupation. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these very powerful words. That being said, I thank you all for being so present. And comment dire en français, c'est plus simple. Merci d'être venus si nombreux ce soir. And I really invite you to celebrate with us and share with us some foods for the new year, Shana Tova Umetuka. And also we have the mission statement of the new network, European Jews for Palestine, and you can also take one for your office or kitchen. Thank you. Thank you very much.